All right, so in this lecture, we are going to be talking about 3D form. So earlier we talked about shapes. That is sort of the two-dimensional idea that things can be broken down into simple shapes. But in real life, things are three-dimensional, not two-dimensional. And even though we might be able to perceive or kind of generate an abstract idea of something as a two-dimensional shape, in reality, we want to try and be able to also think of things as a three-dimensional shape when we're drawing and painting so that we can have more accurate representations and also create things in different poses while still having it look like the same object. So the objects that you see in the world around you can be broken down into four main forms or 3D shapes, and any sort of variation in between these. So there's a sphere, the cone, the cylinder, and the cube or box. So these can kind of be combined in different ways. For example, you can combine a cylinder and a cone by just cutting off the top of the cone and kind of having a narrowed cylinder. A cylinder is sort of like a mix between a sphere and a cube, and you can also have a mix between a cone and a cube and make a pyramid. So these variations are all going to help you be able to take any object and break it down into these simple forms. So let's jump in and start looking at an example of this. Here, I have a picture of this Jeep. I'm going to make a new layer on top of it. I'm going to take this Jeep and lower the opacity to about 50%. And what we're going to do, we're going to get a brush here, and we're just going to try and trace over this image while breaking it down into its basic shapes. Okay, so for example, the main body of the car is for the most part just a big cube. So let's trace that out here. It's gonna come down, the back sort of has this taper. And I'm doing what's called drawing through, which is where even though we might not be able to actually see what's on the other side, we're going to draw through as if what we're drawing was sort of transparent or made out of wires, what's called a wireframe. And then when we draw through it, it gives us a better idea of its, space or its sort of form in a 3D space. So we'll draw through here, the front comes down. Connects right there. All right, let's do these wheels. So these are going to be sort of flattened cylinders here. The wheels are pretty simple because you don't even almost have to simplify them. You ignore some of the texture, but they're pretty much basic cylinder already. And then same with this one back here. Once again, if you want, you can sort of draw through. So you can imagine the rest of the sphere there, or sorry, the cylinder. And lastly, there's one back there. And then let's also, since we're here, we can just pick up that spare tire on the back. Okay, we don't need to worry about the rims or anything like that. So there you go. This is broken down into pretty basic main shapes. If you wanted, you could go a step further and start doing the fenders and stuff like that. But for this example, we're just going to keep it pretty simple. So you can see by breaking these things down using this one, really just use cylinders and cubes, you can take anything and sort of start to draw it from there. If we could start by drawing this Jeep, if we're going to draw a picture of this Jeep and we started with this, it would then be a lot easier to make a new layer and start to refine the shape a little bit more, cut different areas out so that it would be more refined, more accurate, and start working in on those details. So what your assignment is going to be, you're going to use this Jeep one as well that I did the example for, as well as these images. We have a tractor here. You can see, we'll just point out some of the shapes. You have cylinders for the wheels. You have a big sort of cube-like shape for the main body of the tractor. You don't have to come in here and get every single little detail in the machinery, but try and bring out the big ones. You know, there's a little cylinder here, there's the cylinder sort of shape underneath. You know, this box underneath the seat is a big, nice cube, sort of cone shapes for the headlights there. Half a sphere for that little knob on top of the smokestack, okay? This one, horse. This one might be a little bit more complicated for some of you since it's not, it's organic, it's not machinery, but I want to point out some of the shapes in this one as well that you can break down. So let's just draw here. I'm gonna make a new layer. We'll draw right on top. The head, for example, this is going to be sort of like a elongated sort of box where you could see the mouth comes down there, head comes there, okay? The body, for example, you're gonna have a nice big round egg sort of shape. I find personally that really helps to draw these wireframe lines going through to help you understand the orientation of the object you're drawing. Okay. And then even, for example, like the chest here, they kind of intercept each other. This is going to be basically like a big angled box as well. With the neck coming down and attaching to that. Okay. And then the last image you have to work with, bring it up here. This one's fairly simple. You have a lot of basic shapes. We have a cup, some vases, a little jar here, magazine, and this table. And you even have fruit inside the jar that I want you to do as well. So this one, these are very straightforward shapes, but it will help you practice simplifying. For example, this vase with the curves, you can simplify that into a cone. And it will give you a good variety because it has all the basic shapes in it. So that's your assignment. Your assignment is to go through each one of these, trace out the basic forms. They're 3D forms. Remember, we're thinking about these three-dimensionally. So you're not just drawing triangles or circles, you're drawing spheres, cylinders, cones, things like that. So your job is to trace these out, post them in the Q&A, post them in the Facebook group, and that is it for this lecture. I will see you guys in the next one.